Amy Lynn here from Amy Lynn's Attic, and I wanted to do a video today. I haven't done one in a long time, and a lot of people have asked me about when I'm going to start to do card classes again, or maybe I've got friends that aren't really close enough to take a card class here, so I thought I might try to do a few videos just to help people out with some tips and ideas and just some simple tricks that you can do for making cards. So I picked a really simple design to work on today, just a really cute little spring card, and I plan on making several of these to give away on behalf of our local Christian Women's Club as thank yous to people that have visited our club or that we'd like to invite to come back. And so this is a really cute little spring design, and Easter was yesterday, but I still think the spring design is just really cute, so we're going to go ahead and do that. Again, this is a really simple design. I just wanted to show you how easy it can be. A lot of people get intimidated because they don't feel creative, so they feel like, oh, I can't really sit down and design something. But today I want to use some just some really quick tips and show you how you can create something really cute and beautiful that is still handmade that you can make without so much pressure. Okay, so today this card is going to be made with a pre-cut and a pre-designed card blank. And I'll show you one of these. I picked these up, I think, either at one of the big box stores or maybe at even one of the discount stores like Big Lots or something. And what this is it's a Martha Stewart product. And this particular one is called Martha Stewart Eyelet Thank You Cards. And it is a pre-cut, just a standard size note card that has already been scored in the middle. And so you get them, they're flat when you get them in the package, and then you just go ahead and fold them over on the crease. You can crease this with your hand, but I also recommend using the bone folder, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But it is already pre-cut with the eyelet at the bottom, so it's really pretty, just like you might do this with a punch, but you don't have to do that. It's already been punched and the design is already on there. And these cards are pre-printed with the word thank you in the middle, and this would be, there'd be nothing wrong with using this card just like it is. You could actually embellish it just a little bit, maybe some faux stitching along the edge there or a ribbon, and you could use it just like this. But I think I picked these up for a really good price, and it was like a pack of 25 or so, including the envelopes, and the envelopes are very nice quality also. And so I thought, oh, well, I can use these like they are, or if I want to, I can just embellish them. So that's what I've done. This card that we're going to make today actually started out looking like this. Okay, so the other tools that we're going to be using, or the other things that products that we're going to be using today are, I have a very beautiful 12 by 12 sheet of craft paper, or scrapbooking paper you might call it. My friend Kathy and I were down in Winston-Salem back in the fall, and we picked up some really nice papers at one of our favorite scrapbooking stores that had marked these down on clearance, and so we just gave, you know, pennies a piece for these sheets. And I apologize, I'm a brand kind of person. When I find a name brand of a product that I like to keep track of that, because I like a certain style, and when I find products that I really like, I like to go back to that company over and over again and see what kind of different products they have. But this paper actually just says Colors by Design, so I assume that that's the name, the brand, but this particular pattern, there's not a pattern name on the back of it, so I apologize about that. It is Colors by Design, and the product number is SQ119, and just, it's a beautiful watercolor style floral print with a really pretty border around that. So I'm going to start with a 12 by 12 sheet of paper of that. I do, because I make and sell cards, usually I make 6 to 8 cards at a time, and generally speaking, out of a 12 by 12 sheet of paper, I can get anywhere from 6 to 8 paper cuts, or cuts of paper, I should say, that I'm going to use on my card fronts. Okay, so I've got my pretty paper, I've got my eyelet cardstock. The next thing I'm going to use is I'll be using an Ink-a-Dink-a-Doo stamp pad, and the color is Ballerina Pink. A lot of people ask me about the inks that I use, if I use a particular brand. I don't have a particular brand that I like. I look for colors that I want, and then I never pay a whole lot for anything. I always look for things on sale or on clearance and things like that. So I'm not opposed to any brand. I haven't found any brand that I thought was any better than any others, except for maybe Colorbox. I like their chalk inks because they have a chalky type finish, but that's because my style is vintage. I like things to look vintage, and that works really well with my style. This particular ink is just a pigment ink, and again, the color is Ballerina Pink. I also have these really cute little die-cut bunny stickers. I don't have to do a whole lot to them. They're just so precious. And I apologize, I don't know what the name brand of these are. Kathy gave me these, my friend Kathy. So I don't know. And you could use any die cut, a flower, you know, maybe you want to cut something on your Cricut, embellish it up a little bit to make it look, you know, a little more glittery. It's just, if you can find a pre-packaged item like this, it makes your job so much easier. Okay, so other things that I'm going to use today are sheer ribbon. I use a lot of sheer ribbon in my cards. It's one thing that makes the cards look so beautiful. And I try, again, to find ribbons at a really good price because I use a lot of them. So today I'm using just a really narrow sheer ribbon, and this is kind of like an aqua green color, I guess. You could also use pink or purple or anything. You know, if you don't have this exact paper, you know, find a ribbon that kind of coordinates with the paper that you have. You also need a pair of sharp scissors. I use these nice little Fiskars scissors. Fiskars scissors usually come with a lifetime guarantee. So if they ever get dull, you know, or they break or malfunction in some type of way, you can usually call Fiskars and they'll either repair them or replace them under warranty. I also use X-Acto knives quite a bit. This particular brand is Excel, and just has a nice sharp tip on there for cutting fine areas. I also usually have handy this product, which is a glue eraser. I use an advanced tape gun, and or if you're using glue dots or anything like that and you get a glue dot somewhere where you don't want it, this handy little product, and I think this is for making memories, and it's called a glue eraser. It's just a rubbery little thing that will actually rub off the glue if you get it somewhere it shouldn't be. It doesn't work with liquid glues though. It only works with your light glue adhesives like the ATG gun, a tape runner, or glue dots. And then a bone folder. I was talking about that earlier. And the purpose of a bone folder, a lot of people say, what is that for? It's a bevel tool. It's actually wider in the middle for holding, and then it's more narrow along the edges, and it usually will have a pointed tip. Some are smaller than this. Mine is extremely dirty. I apologize. But it just basically is used for creasing your papers, and the purpose of that is because your fingers a lot of times will have oils or inks or glue or even, you know, just a mixture of things. And when you go down the edge of a paper, a lot of times you can leave like a dirty streak there. And so this kind of prevents that. And I should keep mine cleaner, but I do clean this occasionally with a nice, just an alcohol cotton ball or an alcohol prep pad that I keep in my little arsenal of tools. Just will clean most of that gunk off of there. Okay. So, I think covered. Oh, the other thing I'm going to use today are mini glue dots. We'll just use one of those to hold the ribbon in place. Today I'm using Elmer's. This is not my favorite brand, but again, they do have it at the local big box store here in my town. And this is just this tiny little 3/16 of an inch mini glue dots. They're great for holding ribbon in place, and when you have something very small you need to hold. So we'll use one of those. And then one of my favorite tools, anybody that knows me or has worked with me in card making knows that I use the Cricut paper trimmer. And basically this is just a product that you use for measuring and cutting papers. And so we'll be using that to trim the papers. And I'll show you a little bit about how to use that, because a lot of people get a little intimidated when it comes to that, especially if you don't feel very mathematically inclined. Okay, so that's basically the tools that we're going to use today. and I'll go over those again as we go along. I'm going to start with my paper trimmer, and I'm going to try to do this upside down because I'm filming from that side of my desk. So again, we started with a 12 by 12 sheet of paper. Now, I hardly ever measure anything, and that might be something that's difficult for other people that don't think the way that I do. But I like to, I'm more of a creative person. I just kind of let my creativity flow, so I don't spend a whole lot of time measuring things. Generally speaking, what I'll do is start with my standard cardstock, whether it's a plain old cardstock or something like this, and I'll kind of just measure and see how wide it is to see how wide I need to cut my original cuts for the paper. And so this card blank width is 5.5 inches. And again, the Cricut paper trimmer has this nice extending arm that comes out. So you're starting with 0 here, 0 inches, going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so on across the top ruler. And then once you place this down, you also have a ruler that runs along here if you need to measure that way. So this cardstock is 5.5 inches wide according to my ruler here. I just put it up against the lip here and then measure out, and here it's reading 5.5. And so I know anything I cut needs to be 5.5 inches wide. And then for the part where I'm going to actually place the printed paper over this thank you part, again, I'll just place the crease on the cutting line and see how far over I need to come. So I don't want to go any further than the eyelet, and that's about 3 inches over. So I want to cut my papers 5.5 by 3. So I started with a 12 by 12 sheet of paper, and what I do is I put the long side out to the cutting edge, and then I measure over 5.5 inches and put my arm down and just hold that. And then you kind of just want to hold your paper against this little lip here, which keeps it all straight. You want to just kind of hold on to that tight while you run the trimmer down through there. And there you have cut off a 5.5 inch sheet size paper, so that should fit right along the note card. Okay, so now I want to make the second cut for the width of the card, which again I said was going to be 3 inches. And so I'm just going to, again, you want to put the long side of the sheet out to the cutting side, and your measuring side is going to be here. Put your arm down, kind of lock it into place, and hold on to it, hold on to the paper while you slide the cutter down. Sometimes it's good to hold on both sides, kind of doing this upside down. So, all right, so there I have a 5.5 by 3 inch piece of paper, and that fits perfectly on there. Now, again, since I'm cutting 6 to 8 cards at one time, I usually would go ahead and cut the whole sheet. But for our purposes, I'm only going to cut that one because we're just going to make one card here. Okay? Now, that's all the paper cuts I'm going to have on that card. A lot of times I'll have multiple pieces of paper that I'm going to put on one card, so it will have multiple cuts. But we're just using that one printed card stock there. And so I can put my trimmer away. Now, again, when I'm making cards, I kind of have to think about, I usually will try to get an idea in my head and start to gather my materials, the paper, the ribbon, the embellishments that I want to use on the card. I'll kind of try to lay it out before I get started in my mind, what I want it to look like, and then I'll play with the things, and if it works the way my mind says it's going to, then it goes fairly easy, and sometimes it doesn't, and I wind up having to change things around. But I generally try to keep in mind what I'm going to be doing next. For example, if I were going to put another piece of cardstock on top of here, I would probably go ahead and cut that and glue it down before I go any further. Again, if I'm going to be wrapping ribbons around, sometimes I'll go ahead and tie the ribbon around this piece of paper before I glue it down. In this card case, I actually did tie the ribbon. I just went ahead around the inside of the card also with the ribbon. Which a lot of people don't do that because it uses a lot more ribbon, but I make so many cards, I use a lot of ribbon, so it doesn't bother me to use the ribbon on the inside like that. I actually think it looks really pretty. So so for this particular card, I can go ahead and just glue this piece of paper down. I don't have anything else that's going to go on. I'm using my Scotch ATG, or Advanced Tape Glider. This is a wonderful tool, especially if you make cards, because it's a great heavy-duty adhesive. It's very easy to use. If you use tape runners a lot, you're probably going through a lot of money using tape runners. This will save you a lot of money. Takes a little hand-eye coordination, so to speak, because you have to pull the trigger and pull backwards. and you probably won't be able to see it on the camera, but it does dispense a nice piece of glue along the edge of the long sides of this paper. This is a lightweight paper, so I don't feel the need to really do all 4 sides. If it was a heavier cardstock, or if it was going to be in a position where it was going to be handled a lot, I might go ahead and do all 4 sides. But just to conserve a little bit of glue, I only do the 2 longest sides. The next thing I do is just lay it down where I want to glue it on my cardstock, and I just kind of play around with the positioning, lining it up against the edge. And once I've got it where I want it, I just go ahead and lay it down. Kind of try to make sure it is where you want it to be before you press it all the way down. And then once you've got it there, just press it on down. Now here's a good place where the glue eraser comes in handy. Along this edge, I did get a little bit of overlap from the glue runner. So I'm just going to use my glue eraser and just rub that right off. And off it comes, and no one will be any the wiser that there was some glue there. Okay. All right, and again, I'm going to just crease this nicely. I started with another piece of cardstock, so just going to crease that down with the bone folder. Okay, and then I'm ready to move to the next step. And this is a step that a lot of people don't take into consideration. It's one of the things that I do quite frequently on a lot of my cards and projects. And that is adding just a pop of color with an inker on the edges of your paper. It can really just make such a difference in the way that the detail shows up. As you can see in these 2 examples, here it is before I've chalked it, and then this is after I've done that. I call it chalking because it's something that I usually do with a cat's eye chalk inker, which are these great little ink pads. They're small, they're easy to handle, and it's made perfectly for just going along the edges of your projects. And just having a little bit of color on the edge really does make a difference. I don't have a chalk ink in the cat's eye size for the color that I want to use, so I'm actually just going to go ahead and use my pink ink pad. I will just tell you to be cautious when you use paper directly on your ink pad like I'm doing, because it can tend to tear up the surface of the ink pad. So you want to just kind of use a gentle hand with that. And I'm just going to use the ink all the way down the side of the eyelet there to give just a little bit of color. And then I'm going to go back where the eyelet, this is actually embossed. You can't really see that probably with the camera, but there is a raised edge there. And if I gently take the ink pad across the raised edge, the flowers along the eyelet edging there, the ink just kind of really hits the high spots, and so it's going to really make those little paper cutout flowers really pop out. So hope you can see that. Okay, so we're halfway there. The next thing that I do is I'm ready to add my ribbon. And so again, this is something that I don't really measure a whole lot. If you are a person that does better with measuring pieces out and then tying it on, you can certainly do that. I go, because I'm making so many cards at once, I just generally will tie on my ribbon and then trim it off as I need it. So I just start with the ribbon right on the roll like that, and I'll just pull some of the ribbon through. And again, I'm going to the inside of the card with my ribbon because I don't mind that. And then I just bring the 2 pieces together, the loose end and then the end still on the ribbon roll. And I'm going to begin to bring those together and then tie a little bow. Now I'm very particular, you might say, about my bows. I like really cute, tight little bows. And so some of my friends will laugh at me because they'll be like, you know, you spend so much time tightening that little bow down. But I just like a tiny little petite, cute, tight little bow. And you do have to take into consideration that this card is going to go inside an envelope. So I like to keep them just, you know, very small, tight, cute little bow. Okay, so just play around with the ribbon a little bit. And again, you can see I'm still attached there. And once I've got the ribbon, the bow tied about the way I want it, and I get satisfied with it, I'll go ahead and trim off that loose edge. I usually do try to cut the ribbon at an angle like that, and then I'll go back and trim the other end also. And if that's still, maybe I'll look at it and I'll think that's a little too long, I'll go back and trim a little bit more off. And then I'm just gonna, you can kind of slide this up and down as you know, where you want it to position it, just by kind of sliding it back and forth on the card. And I want mine kind of right there in the center. And so once I've got the bow where I want it and I'm satisfied with the tightness and the size of it, that's where I'm going to use one of these little mini glue dots. This roll is covered with these tiny little dots of glue. It's almost like a rubbery kind of glue, as it will hold its shape. I don't know if you'll be able to see this or not, but I do use my X-Acto knife for this to lift that tiny little glue dot off of there. And so I just have like a little, just a little tiny piece of glue, really. It's adhesive on both sides. So I'm just going to lift up my bow, lay the glue dot down, and then push the bow down on it. And so now, for the most part, my ribbon is stuck there, so it's not going to move too much one way or the other. And even if it does kind of tug this way or that way when they're pulling it out of the envelope, it's not going to come completely off because I have a nice little glue dot behind there. You could also do a glue dot back on this side if you wanted to. I generally find that one glue dot pretty much works and does what I need it to do. Okay, so we're coming around the bend here. I'm almost finished. The last part that I'm going to add is my little bunny embellishment. And again, I used a pre-packaged, pre-made bunny rabbit that's already been glittered and has lots of nice features, and actually even has a piece of adhesive on the back that has a little bit of height to it. So I won't do a whole lot to that. I did go ahead and put pink ink around the edges of the bunny, just because I'm using the bunny over top of a very light, a pale pastel colored paper. And again, some things can tend to blend into one another if you don't have some type of defined outline. So I don't know, this is just something I really do, and I think it's very subtle. A lot of people don't realize when they look at the card how beautiful it is. That part of the reason that such a simple card is so beautiful is the attention to the small details. Okay, so that's basically it. And I am going to put an extra strip of glue on the bunny's ears just because they're so long and there's no adhesive there. So again, this would be a great place for a glue dot, or maybe just a, you know, a splash of some type of adhesive, but the ATG for me works. And then I'm going to peel this adhesive covering off the back of that little block. It actually had two on there, so I'm not sure if that's sticky enough. Okay, so that second piece of adhesive did not have enough glue on it. And again, this is a great place to use a little dot of glue. Okay, all right. And then I'm just going to kind of position the bunny where I want him. I like him right in the center. And then press that down. Okay, so that's basically all there is to this card. I did several of these cards that we're going to use with our local Christian Women's Club to mail out to some of the people that have attended our lunches recently. And so on the insides of their cards, I did stamp Happy Spring with these cute little wooden rubber word stamps that I had. But at this point, if I were going to sell this card, I would probably just go ahead and leave it blank on the inside because it could be used for any number of type of cards. Another thing that I do with my cards a lot that add a little bit of, to me, quality to a handmade product is, rather than just use the inside of the card as to stamp the sentiment, I will sometimes go ahead and add an additional piece of paper. So like I might cut a white piece of paper or a light colored piece of paper to glue inside here. I would cut, for example, I would cut this down to fit on the inside of there, and then glue it down, and then stamp my sentiment in there, or even leave it blank. And that just adds a little more, because I have weight on the front of the card. It just kind of balances out the weight on the middle of the card, so you don't have this heavy embellished front and this very light flimsy back. The last thing that I'll remind you to do and I recommend this for all my crafters, is to sign the back of your card, or any creation really, especially if you're going to give it away. In this day and age, people really do appreciate handmade goods, and so I think it's nice to have your signature on the back, especially if you're making it for a friend or someone that would like to keep it as a keepsake. Now, personally, I use the labels that I pre-print on my printer, just because, again, the quantity that I'm doing, and mine does have my website on it as well. But if you were making cards to sell on Etsy or something like that, that'd be a great thing to do, is just print out a little sticker that says handmade by, and then I do sign, even though these labels are printed, I do sign the middle of every single one of those. So when you receive a card from me and it has Amy Lynn on the middle of it, I actually sign my name there. So, you know, some kind of marking. And you can actually buy stamps that say handmade with love by, and then you can just sign your name underneath, or something like that. But basically, that is it in a nutshell. That is our cute little spring bunny card. I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope that's helpful. And just keep your eyes and ears open for more videos to come, and I'll be posting more soon. Thanks. Have a great day.